It's such a quiet spot around here. Like I sort of.
Well, you're on this corner of Ennismore, which is wonderful.
Oh.
No through traffic whatsoever. Got incredible views over towards Knightsbridge over here.
It's a special square.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it's always been one of my favourite. Certainly Knightsbridge.
When we were recording an area guide around here, and I was saying like it's one of my favourites.
Yeah, because it's so secluded and so quiet. Yeah, everything is on your doorstep. The park's that side, Knightsbridge that side. It's perfect.
Let's go have a chat.
Let's go and have a chat.
Down.
Yeah, we'll come into this rather magnificent reception. I thought this was fitting for you, dear boy.
Well, it fits very well. I mean, look at the ceiling.
I see ceiling heights, chandelier. I mean, it's great. You don't get these anymore, do you? These sort of grandiose receptions. I think they're wonderful.
And you're east facing here, right? So
yeah, east facing. So coffee in the morning, and sun up until about midday.
Yeah. Find my checkbook.
Yeah, come on. I bought the contracts. Yeah.
Well, welcome everybody to season 1, episode 1 of Desert Island Deals, the series that is loosely based on an existing format, but not close enough that we will receive a cease and desist letter from any major corporations. This is a show about some of the greatest real estate agents on the planet and taking the format of 8 straightforward questions with hopefully multiple different answers. Now, opening the show, my glorious batting partner today has all of the style and panache of an Alistair Cook and that of a David Gower for those of more old school style. And it is an absolute pleasure for me to introduce to you the man who recently became very famous for his Instagram comments on my reels. It is Mr. Oliver Oli Hamilton.
Wonderful to be. What an intro.
Well, thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Building that up for days.
Yeah, no, yeah, fantastic.
Ollie, if you want to, for some unfathomable reason, there might be people out there who don't know who you are.
It's not possible.
Not possible. But for the ones who have been in the cave, if you wanted to tell us a bit about you, and then we'll start getting into it.
Yeah, so I am Oli Hamilton, a property tycoon, captain of industry. No, I am a realtor, real estate agent with my own company, and I work under a brokerage model called DDRE Global. I've been in real estate we're coming up to 17 years now, so a long time. I started very young. But yeah, so some 17 years now, and I've it's been amazing actually. It's been an amazing journey because within those 17 years, so much has changed.
Yeah, drastic changes.
Yeah,
in that time.
Yeah. So so as I say, so I've been in it for 17 years. I've worked in offices in Kensington. I headed an office in Kensington for about 8 years.
For
another agency, which was great. I learnt my trade, with them. And then a couple of years after that, I then set up my own company, which is called Hamilton Property Acquisitions. So that was post building up a really strong clientele a really strong clientele list, which I then utilized to be able to go on and do my own things.
Well, for a man who's been in it for that long, I have to say you don't look a day over 39.
That is very, very, well, 39, yeah. Well, 38, 39 in a week. I told you that.
Well, happy birthday to you, Ollie. Well, look, let's get into it. The format is the same 8 questions for all the people that we're going to interview. Getting to know a bit about the realtors that we're talking to in their career. And the first question is always going to be, do you remember the first property that you sold?
The first property that I sold, well, yeah, I do remember the first property that I sold, but probably more interesting is the first deal I ever did, which was actually a rental.
Okay.
Now, this was over in Kensington. Mm-hmm. It was a really lovely ground floor apartment in Kensington Court. I don't know if you're aware of it. Yeah, really lovely bit of Kensington. Obviously, I was new to the game, so I was terribly excited.
Big green.
Yeah, and I remember meeting this couple. He was a banker, and I met his other half, which things will come alight here soon.
So these were clients that you'd been given by the agency you're working for.
That's
or you knew
right.
them already?
Yeah. No,
So
they
pre-arranged viewing.
pre-arranged viewing. Showed them around the property. I was very new to it, so quite nervous and so on. And it all happened terribly fast. He sort of looked at the property and said, within 5 minutes, yeah, we'll take that. So this is a rental deal. We'll take that for 2 years, pay everything up front. I thought, wow, this is easy, right? So anyway, he put the deal forward. He sent over all the documentation required. I won't name the bank that he was part of, but he was in a prominent position in a prominent bank. So everything seemed great. Passed all the AML, KYC, and they moved in 2 weeks later. Okay, so everything great. I was coming into work. I think it was the day after it was a week after they'd moved in. Okay, and I walked past the flat because it was on my way to work at the time, and there were about 6 police cars outside the property, which I thought was a bit strange. I got to the office and got a barrage of calls from other residents in that block where I'd rented this apartment from, and it turns out within a week, this couple had turned my first rental into a brothel, which is quite unbelievable.
Discovered after a week.
It was discovered after a week, so they literally
noisy brothel.
From the calls I was getting, it was very noisy. It was totally embarrassing because it was quite distinguished residents within that block of a certain age, and I had these lovely elderly women calling me saying there's very strange noises coming from the apartment, and there's lots of men coming in and out. There was a huge bust by the police. He was arrested, and it turns out all the documentation that we'd received, it was all fake. I mean, incredible fakes.
What year was this?
So we're going back to when I was 20.
Oh wow! Okay, this is right at the.
We're right, yeah, exactly. And things possibly weren't quite as stringent and tight as they were. Not to say that we sort of let things go.
No. But things did get a lot more.
And we had everything. I mean, all title from this distinguished bank, and sign-offs from managing directors, and sign-offs from bank managers. It was incredible. They did an incredible job.
I suppose the question is, did you get your commission?
No, no, I didn't. Is the answer? It was a complete mess. They, within a week, that apartment, as I say, had been turned into this. They'd actually put sort of separations within it was. You can't imagine it.
How long were you in lettings?
So that was I literally just started at that point. So I was doing it with the nature of the office I was in. I was doing both rental and sales. Mm-hmm. So I'd been doing rentals for a month.
Right.
And awful.
Well, you know what? I don't think we're going to get a better answer than that.
It was, and to this day, I wish I wonder where he is. I look back at it, and God, he was a good actor.
Do you know? I mean, was he just a con man? Right?
Yeah, he was a con man. But I think the woman he was with, his supposed other half, was the sort of madam, as it were.
Was there any background in property before you started?
Okay. So This is making me sound awful, actually, to begin with. So not only do I rent out brothels, I went to university to study real estate, and I sort of didn't get down to it, as it were. Right. So I did real estate for a year and left. I actually got into real estate because my uncle, he went to Reading University. Actually, I think it was Richmond University back then. It was based in London, but he did real estate there. My uncle is big in property. Right. He works with King Charles, was Prince Charles, but he did Poundbury, the development there with him, and he was this sort of right-hand man on that. So I think from a young age, I was quite interested in that. Yeah. And he said, go and study at Reading.
Well, I think you're in good company. There's a long and distinguished line of people who've dropped out of university, fabulous estate agents, including myself.
That's it. But as I say, doesn't sound great, does it? Dropped out of university, rented out a brothel. I need to improve here.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Now, we've all had them, Ollie, transactions that don't go to plan. Would you have one that sticks out in your mind as perhaps being the most complicated?
Yeah, I think this one sort of coincides with one of my biggest deals to date, or biggest financial transactions to date, which was on a property over in the Kensington Holland Park area. And it was an extraordinary place. It took about 5 years to develop, and we sold it for close to 75 million. So it was a serious transaction. But it was far from easy. So yes, you're quite right. There were a number of parties involved. There were sort of 3 other agents involved.
Were you representing the buyer?
I was representing the buyer.
Okay.
We had to get Mandarin translators in. A lot of the legal work was, again, coming from East Asia and so on.
Mm-hmm.
All needed to be translated. We needed Mandarin, a Mandarin legal team here in the UK, as well as, dealing with the one over in China.
Yeah.
There were various add-ons for getting to reaching certain exchange times, completion times. And then there were all the financial issues that
Getting money out of
arose,
China.
getting money in, out, everywhere. So that was incredibly tough. There were just a lot of people all coming in at once. And again, I was very, very young when I did this. So this was actually not, believe it or not, this was not far off the brothel incident. So I went from that to 75 million. So I thought this game was extraordinary, you know. So one moment I'm renting out a brothel, and the next I'm selling a 75 million pound property. But so it was. I remember just. Was it overwhelming? Yes, I suppose as I was very young, it was quite overwhelming because I was still learning the ropes essentially, but yet I'm dealing with one of the biggest transactions that I have still dealt with to this date, and that many agents will never probably deal with. So it was a lot, but it was a great learning curve.
How did it come to you if you were that early in your career? It was just somebody handed you a client and it turned out
it was a client. Yeah, that's right. Actually, it was someone I knew quite well. They introduced me to someone else, who then introduced me to this. Like
so
it
you
is so
sourced the lead yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
high achieving to anyone.
well, I mean, yes, but the product was so incredible, and it was a one-off.
Yeah.
So I think yes, I was lucky enough to get to that person, but the property sold itself.
Have you worked with that client again?
Yeah, I've done a couple of things. Yeah,
really?
Absolutely. Yeah. But it was a lot. When I first started out, it was a lot, but it was a really good learning. I was quite naive at the time. Agents trying to pull strings here, there, and everywhere. Then there was a matter of fees, and I wasn't necessarily in a place yet in my career where I could,
map it out
and be quite as dominant as I would have wanted to be.
Were you retained by the buyer?
Yeah. In that instance.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had to fish out a bit of that for greasing the wheels.
And exactly. And that's part of the complexities of it. Again, kind of working that all out. And
I've always been more of that sort of opinion of like better to split a penny than argue over a pound. But
completely.
You don't realise that maybe necessarily at the beginning part. And you're also so sort of desperate to get a deal done that.
I think that's right. When at the beginning, it was sort of foreign to me. Why I should fight to save every penny, as it were. And some of the people I was working with at the time were of that opinion as well. I've completely changed on that as I've gone through my career. I realised that's not the way. But yeah, at the time, there was a bit of that.
Yeah, finding good people to work with that you can share fees with happily. I think that's the happy place people get to actually, if they've been doing this for long enough.
But I think, coming back to your question, I remember that being highly complicated. But having said that, I've had deals. I've had one actually last 2 years ago, a deal at a much smaller transaction, £1 million, or just over £1 million. It took a year to get it over the line.
Was there an obvious factor?
This was down to lawyers. I'm not afraid to say one incompetent lawyer. I hope they don't watch this, but or
That
listen
doesn't
to
really
this, or
narrow it down.
It don't. Well, no, yeah, quite right.
Sorry, lawyers.
It was sorry. Some of them are lovely. My father's a lawyer. It was down to EWS1.
Right.
It was down to issues with the managing agents. It was down to license to assigns. It just went on and on and on. Yeah, we eventually got over the line a year later. But you know, it just shows.
That's amazing.
I
Everyone
don't.
stuck with it.
Yeah, I know. I that's one thing with me. I can't let things go.
Always got your teeth in.
I literally, you know. So whoever I'm working for, either buyer or seller, I have to do it.
Yeah,
you know.
That's an admirable quality.
It's just something I've always had.
Yeah.
You know, I have to get it over the line one way or another. But I think it just shows, though, no matter what segment of the market you're working in, complexities are there. So if you're dealing with a 75 million, I've had transactions at 30 million, which have been incredibly easy, all done in 12 days. You know, it's down to I think it's so often down to the people you're working with.
Yeah.
So again, coming back to lawyers, coming back to mortgage broker, it could be just a whole variety of things. But when you've got the right people on side, it works.
I used to think about that when people were spending even 3, 4, 5 million pounds on a property, and then they come to you with, "I'm being represented by lawyersforyou.com."
Yeah.
So it's like, don't skimp on that.
That's it.
Don't skimp on the lawyer. Don't skimp on the surveyor. Get a decent mortgage broker.
100%, and it makes all the difference. I have no doubt this £1 million deal that I'll go back to, that I mentioned, would have been done in a matter of a month probably, had we had a really good lawyer on board.
And in terms of, I mean, these are all, all of these deals, I suppose they're sort of little dots in your timeline of your career, but is there one that stands out as being the most significant transaction, or one that you could sort of pinpoint as being, this was significant in my career?
I think, I mean, obviously financially, the one we just spoke of was a big one. I think for me, though, actually, one of the most significant deals I've done was actually last year, and this was a very very well known client of mine. It's become a client of mine. I was actually selling another property. They came to view it, and we forged a relationship from there. But this is someone who I adored for years prior to meeting them.
Can we name the industry?
Entertainment. Entertainment, acting. Okay. It doesn't really narrow it down much, does it? Acting, entertainment.
Yeah.
They're terrific to work with. And it was just such a joy representing someone that I've I was so fond of.
So they didn't buy the one that you were selling,
right? So they didn't buy that one. I sourced them something else. This was over in North London, actually. And I also sold the property that they were living in at the time for them as well. So it was a sort of double
whammy.
Yeah, but it was what, and I think that just because of who it was really special to me.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, last year was not an easy year.
And exactly. I mean, that I think that's another thing that also made it special. It had been a very, very tumultuous, difficult year to navigate, and this all just suddenly came about, and it just worked.
Yeah, it's a good place to meet a client on a viewing.
It is.
They're fairly committed.
This was a beautiful house. This was Ronnie Wood's old house in Richmond, which we were representing its owner at the time, and an extraordinary house, sort of grand estate in Richmond, rock and roll.
Very nice.
Most amazing grounds. It was super. So I half, when you're dealing with a property of that ilk, you do hope that certain people will walk through the door, and you'll be able to, if they don't like that property, guide them elsewhere.
Did they know it was Ronnie Wood's house when they were walking in there?
They did, yeah. I advertised that quite prominently. Yeah,
It's a nice way of doing it.
I think I actually put it down as Ronnie Wood's old house. Yeah.
Now, we all have our war stories, Ollie, but is there a particular deal that maybe keeps you up at night, one that we could perhaps class as the one that got away?
Yeah, well, actually, funny. It's strange how everything is that I'm talking about is actually quite recent. But again, it coincides with the people I was just talking about, this celebrity.
Yeah.
So I was retained by them to find them their sort of dream home,
House in London.
A house in London, which we did. We found the most spectacular house. It was asking just under 20 million. Really, really super place, and we worked on it for months. We had a range of surveyors in there, technical surveyors, and this, that, and the other, and a lot of back and forth, and a lot of work went into it, many hours. And everything was set. My clients were thrilled, over the moon. Their hearts were set on it. I was thrilled for them. It got to the day of exchange. It got to the minute of exchange. Pens on paper. And the dreaded phone rang. And it was the vendor, who I loathed at the time, loathe even more now. Again, actually, I don't mind if he's watching, because he knows how I feel about him. And he said, I want more money, and it was a significant amount more money. And it turns out he'd been entertaining another party behind our backs all the way over these months. He'd had another party in motion all the way, and he was just waiting till that minute prior to exchange. He also knew who my client was, and I think he thought he might be able to get away with it somewhat. And I'm thrilled. I look back at it now. At the time, I wasn't, but I'm thrilled. I spoke to my clients on the day, on the hour when it was all happening. It was all rather devastating, and we both agreed. Let's just tell him to do one. Absolutely not. We are not going to pay a penny more, and I'm so glad we did that, because he doesn't deserve a dime, the bastard.
Yeah. That's a wonderful feeling to walk away like when you.
Oh, it was.
If you're representing the buyer, I suppose it's easier, right? If you're up to the seller and then somebody tries to pull that, it's a tough gig.
Yeah, but it was really, because I mean he was a difficult man throughout, and we always knew that was we didn't know it was going to get to this point, but we always knew. I don't know, something wasn't right. He wanted everything done incredibly quickly, but he wasn't terribly happy with surveyors coming. There were weird things going on. But anyway, it was actually a happy ending, because, as I just said, I can't let things go. So when we got that devastating news, so my clients had just lost their dream house. I'd lost a significant fee. The next day, I just went to town. I phoned up every agent I know over in North London, representatives. I delved straight back into it, looked at sort of every off-market home over in North London, called my clients, narrowed it down to sort of 2 or 3 that I thought, really might work for them. These were all off-market opportunities. Got them into one 2 days after we'd had this bad news, and they fell in love with it, adored it. So 2 years later, 2 days later, we managed to reverse it and find them something even better. And this was a really smooth transaction this time. So it was happy. And I think the moral of the story is because it's going to happen in all our careers, and it doesn't matter what stage you're at. These things will happen. It's perseverance.
Now, but perhaps outside of transactions, is there a property that you would say is the most important in your life? Now, whether that was a deal, maybe somewhere you grew up, a place that you like to go, is there one property you could maybe pick out as being significant to you?
You know what? I think if I'm thinking of a building, I'm going to go to. I think it's 160 Piccadilly, which is better known as the Wolseley.
Oh yeah.
So I think it was around the 1920s, and it's the most magnificent Edwardian arena, if you like. It's a stunning build, and I've just always been in love with that room. Have you?
Yeah, it's gladiatorial, right? We sort of have
I just love it. That the sort of.
It's one of the best lunches I've ever had in my life.
It's the room for me, and it's that European grandeur mixed in with that quintessentially sort of London feel. It feels London for me. Piccadilly in London would feel empty without that building, and I love it that you can sit there having a lunch or dinner. That you look out the window at the far end, and you've got the Ritz over there. You've got it was Caprice, now Arlington around the corner. You've got Jermyn Street, just around there. I love that little hub, but that building for me is just
something special.
So I'm blown away by it, and its history. It started off as a car showroom.
Yes.
Then it was a bank, and later it was taken on by Jeremy King and Chris Corbin, the great restaurateurs who started Caprice Holdings. They then made it this wonderful place that it is still today. They no longer own it, but there's just something about that bill. I can't, I'm not sure what it is.
I know exactly what you mean.
But I just think and for me that area.
St James is my favourite part of London. I think it's like hugely underrated.
Likewise.
Well, it's not underrated.
Well, it's not underrated, but you're
right. It goes
right.
under the radar, maybe.
Well, you're right, because everyone will come to you wanting Belgravia, Mayfair, Chelsea, Kensington. Rarely do you get someone saying St James or those beautiful bits of Westminster, Birdcage Walk and Queen Anne's Gate, and that to me is magical London.
I totally agree. Like spending an afternoon walking around Jermyn Street and then dropping into the RAC.
Yeah, but and that sort of Queen Anne architecture and Georgian architecture. It's that for me that's what makes London so great.
It feels like old London to me.
It does feel like old London, but you're so right though that it's weird saying that it feels that not enough people sort of go in for that bit of town.
Yeah.
But and underrated. I would say it is somewhat underrated because I think they are some of the most special properties around there, and then the most exquisite places that London has to offer.
I'm totally with you. We were selling a place, excuse me, once in St James. It's just such a joy to go for a viewing there.
Yeah,
because you sort of meet the client there, do the viewing, and then be like, well, maybe I'll just have an hour, just like walking around St James, go and see where they made hats in 1650.
Yeah, you've got the hat shops, the cigar shops, the
wine, the berry brothers.
The wine, the cheese shops. It's glorious, isn't it?
And then ultimately, sort of Buckingham Palace, I suppose.
And what's actually really funny about that bit as well, now that I think of it, it's all you go a little bit further up and it's full bulging with tourists. But you go down Jermyn Street, it's all rather quiet. And you don't get that sort of, again, because I think it is all rather hidden and off map.
Now, look, we've discussed some fantastic deals. We've talked about highs and lows. But could you say if there is a day in your real estate career that perhaps stands out above all else, whether that's the greatest or whatever it may be, but one that really sticks in your mind?
Well, I think I think there's multiple moments. I think on a personal and professional note, it was, or has to be, when I veered away from the agency that I was with and started my own company. It was a big moment.
When was this?
So I started my own company 4 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah, 4.5 years ago now.
Yeah.
So I'd been toying with it for a while, and I'd had some other offers from other people who were sort of starting their own things and whether I wanted to come in, and I'd I'd always said no. So it took a lot, to suddenly. Actually, I was on holiday. I remember I was on a beach, and I just thought, you know what, let's do it. Let's do it.
Which beach?
I was in Spain at the time. I think it was Mallorca again. Yeah.
And you've been toying with this idea?
No, sorry, it was in Italy actually. Sorry, but not that
it's
that's a huge factor. But yeah. And I'd been toying with the idea, and I'd spoken to my wife about it, and I'd to be fair, I'd always been the one to sort of say, but what if, and and she gave me a lot of confidence and she just said, do it. You're in a position now. You're doing really, really well at what you do. Mm-hmm. You built up that clientele, that presence within the industry. This is the time to do it. So I'm so glad I just went for it.
And was that buying agents?
Yeah. So I did a combination. I know a lot of agents sort of narrow themselves down one one particular mold, whether it's the buying agent or the selling agent. But I play around with a bit of everything, because I'm happy to do a bit of everything. But I suppose, when I first started, it was more, it just organically went more to the buying side.
Well, not easier. Nothing's easy when you're running your own company, but it's perhaps easier to work your way into a crowd of buyers than it is to convince sellers that you're the person to go with when you're a brand new company.
Well, when you're a new company, and then you've got the whole marketing element, and where do you sort of So that's right. Yeah. So I think that's why it naturally fell down that route. But it was great. It was refreshing. It was rewarding. I could do things in the way that I wanted to do things. I had a vision of where I thought property should be going in this country and how people should be dealing with the industry, and I just managed to do a bit of that, and it felt great. Yeah.
The thing I found particularly hard about going from running my own business to working with another company is this idea that between sort of 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. isn't just sort of sitting around in your pants eating cereal.
Yeah.
This idea that people want to do like Zoom calls with you, or like you've got to wear a shirt and a tie.
Yeah.
That's sort of like freedom that comes with owning your own business. Yeah. Actually, it's more of a driving factor. Right?
Well, it's a driving factor, and the pressures are heightened.
Yeah.
You are out there in this jungle on your lonesome now. You don't have the backing of a company behind you. It is down to you. So you've got to be pretty rigorous and really attack it.
The highs are the highest, though.
The highs are the highs. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think I was going to say the lows are the lowest, but actually I suppose once you've been in this career for a while, actually the lows are softened because you have experience in that this happens. We used to say when I first started out, it was a third, and a third. So a third of your deals would be going through, a third would be in conveyancing, and a third would be falling out.
Yeah.
That's just
which I think sums it up.
The way that it was.
Yeah.
And I found losing deals very, very tough.
Yeah.
Whereas towards the end, I sort of grizzled and lost all my feelings.
Well, you become a little bit more numb to it, don't you? At first, it's a real
Do you know what? But the victories don't ever get any less sweeter.
No.
They still feel amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Every time you get something over the line, wonderful.
Have you got a process for celebrating deals? Is there anything you do in particular?
Normally just sort of cry. Just let it all out finally. No, I not really. I have that elation, and I don't have a sort of process of popping the bottle and going wild, and I just sit with it and that and enjoy that feeling. And more so, I get my greatest pleasure from just that post completion phone call or post exchange phone call,
telling the client
with that client,
it's done,
and the joy that you receive from their side is just great. It's wonderful. You're making dreams happen.
It's true. It's true. It's very true. Ollie, you are obviously known as somewhat of a rock star in the industry. Now, have you had the chance, do you think that is something you'd like to try for 24 hours? If you could be at the peak of your powers in another career for one day, what would that be?
I think. Well, the obvious one for me. I'm a diehard Chelsea fan. I know this is going to cause
It's fine.
some tensions, isn't it? Because you've gone the other side of London for some
We're going to
bizarre
cut that out
reason.
and put Arsenal.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'm a diehard
Arsenal. But so I've been going to Stamford Bridge since I was 6, something like that.
boy.
Yeah. I remember the shed, and I've been through this bizarre journey that Chelsea have taken. I've been there all the way. And yeah, if I could, step out onto that pitch as their prime new signing.
Yeah. Any particular game?
I mean, I suppose against your lot. I just didn't know, but it would. Any game. I mean, yeah, to be able to walk out of Stamford Bridge. I mean, I'd go back in time. I'd have Lampard there, Terry over here, and yeah, I mean, that would be hard to beat for me. It'd be pretty incredible. I think that on a really sort of different note. So, other than being an elite sportsman, I go a little bit sort of going back into my answer when it came to an important building for me, the Wolseley.
Yeah.
I've always admired, Jeremy King, who was him and Chris Corbin ran Caprice Holdings. So they started the Wolseley and other things, the Ivy, Shiki. I remember I remember going in because we used to go for dinner quite a lot with my parents and so on, and he was always a presence there. So he'd make a thing that he would go to every one of his restaurants every night, and I just loved watching him. The grace and the elegance and the aura he had in the room, and how he made every single person there feel that they were the most important person there. And I've seen sort of, again, I remember when I was young and going off to, I remember specifically in Thailand, in Bangkok, the Mandarin Oriental there. And I remember from a young, I was probably 11 or 12, looking up this
very small 11.
Very small, well, yeah, sort of, yeah. Stunted grey. Looking up at this, seemingly very tall Swiss hotel manager there, and just again, being enthralled by his elegance and the way he'd work a room, and it was all very swan-like. I'm sure incredible hardships going on under the water, but on the surface it was all immaculate, and I was just so impressed by that.
You're saying we're all having lunch at Hamilton's this
time
next year?
That's it. No, because I think what I've done. Because from a young age and my admiration for these types of people, great sort of maitre d's and restaurateurs, I've tried to bring a little bit of that into the real estate world.
Customer relations and make people feel special.
It's part of it. You can you can use that essence that these greats in my eyes use for working the rooms and so on in directly into property, selling property, viewing properties, interaction. It's
great service is memorable, right? Great relationships, people who you feel like genuinely care about what you're doing. It's a memorable thing.
And I remember he always said, don't view. He said too many restaurants view a customer coming in as a cash reward. Yeah. He's never ever done that. He views it as an opportunity to make someone feel great and provide a great and memorable service. And I kind of feel the same about real estate. I think a lot of agents, they look at people as, pound notes, but for me, it's never been about that. It's I see an opportunity to really hopefully make someone's property journey a memorable and very positive one.
Ollie, we have one question left, which I'm sure people who've stuck all the way through to the end and are perhaps maybe at the beginning of their journey or are thinking, I like the look of what Ollie's doing, I'd like to start out with this. Other than beginning with brothels, and bearing in mind that not all people have been chiseled by Michelangelo and have the hair of an Arabian stallion. So, for people who are considerably uglier than you out there, what would you say? What would be your advice? So I mean, let's say you were starting out again in 2024.
Yeah.
So rather than going back to your first day, if you were beginning again now, what are the things that you would suggest as advice for someone beginning in the agency world?
I think it's sort of, again, somewhat interlinks into what we were just talking about. I think really, and I think more and more agents are doing this now, but try and avoid from a young age the corporate standardization, or as I call it, sort of corporate sedation.
Mm-hmm.
I feel if you go into a highly corporate environment from a young age, it's very hard to get out of, and you'll learn certain methods and so on from your hierarchy that essentially are there to suppress. No one in these big companies wants you to sort of become this mega agent, because their priority is the company and its name.
Mm-hmm.
So I think be careful with that. Always try and keep some individuality, that individual flair, charisma. I think it gets you so far. A bit like back to our talking about these great restaurateurs, stick out, be a people person, go about things with grace and tenacity and elegance, and
you think that's important as well, to stand out in the way that you present yourself as well?
I think presentation is important.
I agree. I think people who look like they care about themselves will also care about you as a client.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Now there is a reverse to that, when perhaps somebody turns up in tracksuit and a t-shirt, and you think, well, he must be good.
He must be really
he
good.
must really
know
what he's doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
well, because it's interesting. The real estate industry is changing, isn't it? Where a suit and tie is becoming less in vogue now.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think it's still important. I don't see it as I don't dress for a client in a suit and tie to impress. It's more a sign of respect. Mm-hmm. I'm dealing with very beautiful, important properties with high net worth clients. It doesn't matter if they're high net worth or not, clients. And I see it as a respectful notion that you should turn up, looking a certain way. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit of that sort of Superman syndrome, isn't it? When you put on the suit, it takes you to a different place.
I'm completely with
you.
Yeah. I feel naked without it.
Naked without it. So I think so presentation is important, but starting out, I think it sounds strange, but just don't be a sheep. Don't follow. There is no rule book when it comes to real estate.
So perhaps try and find an independent, somebody maybe who's looking for.
I went through an independent boutique agency, fantastic, wonderful, and I would have been such a different realtor to this day had I gone for a big corporate giant from the offset. That helped me massively. So look, some people might want to go down that route and the comfort of what corporate work gives you.
Yeah.
But I think if you really want to go on to that next level, and also very important to find people that you like and trust and can learn from.
Is there a mentor that you had that sticks out?
Yeah, I think from this initial the initial company that I worked for 8 years and so on. The director there was wonderful. He was quite. He stood out as well. He was quite. He didn't fit the general mold of a real estate agent in Kensington, which I liked, and he was very well known, and I learned a lot from him. He was very easygoing. He's very cool.
It's funny because 8 years for your first job in real estate.
I just sort of I
did 7. I rang up a recruiter because I had to move to a different part of London, and he was like, "How long have you worked this place?" And I said 7 years. He's like, "I'll get you a job anywhere."
Well, that's
So it's a good sign, because they were a small independent agency in Brook Green, and but they were just so committed to what they were doing and clients, and it wasn't a big corporate.
And you get more time. You get more time with with senior people, because you're not in some sort of huge corporate giant company where you'll never see superiors. But I was seeing people who'd been in the industry for years and years and years, and learning so much every day from them. And so I think that that would be my advice. But just just do things your way.
Yeah.
You know, don't be afraid of it.
Yeah.
I think I would tell my younger self that. I think I tried to fit the mold of a realtor back then. Back when I first started, I was used to seeing all the sort of Chelsea agents. So I remember I just copied their style directly. The tasseled loafers, the signet ring. I thought that's all an estate agent was.
Yeah.
But I quickly learned that it just find a route that you're comfortable with and that you're good at,
can stick to as well,
and that you can
stick
stick
to. Make it up.
That's
and
it.
Then,
and don't be afraid of it. It all seems terribly daunting, but you'll get acquainted with it very, very quickly, and you'll work things out very, very quickly. It all seems like a very scary industry, I think, from the outside, but it's not.
And I suppose just finally on that, as somebody who has an online presence, do you think that's important for new agents to foster that, or do you think there's a route to the top of the game? Let's say it's going to take them 5-10 years to build a career. Do you think they could do that without the use of social media, or do you think that's pretty integral?
I think it's become pretty prominent now. I mean, I was very late to the social media game because I slightly grew up with the ilk of the more old school methodologies of discretion and not putting it all out there, as it were, overexposure. But I suppose I have learnt that to keep up with the kids, as it were, and keep up with these modern times. It's important because now, I mean, people look for real estate agents on the likes of Instagram and so on. They look for properties on the likes of Instagram and TikTok. If you're not in it now, you're just missing out on a huge segment.
Would you? I mean, you don't have to give exact, but do you feel that Instagram is a good source of lead generation for you these days?
Would I say good source of lead? I mean, yes, because I have had leads from it, but I think more so it's just about presence.
Yeah.
It's a shop window at the end of the day.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a shop window. It's. I don't think you're going to get hundreds of leads, and but instead of your high street offices, which are quickly, I mean, I imagine in 10 years that they will no longer be there. Yeah. We'll all have, and including companies, our shop windows, and you've just got to put your best foot forward and that's the way to actively sort of promote yourself, and also to put your views out there and do your own thing.
Ollie, for episode 1, we couldn't have asked for a better guest, so thank you very much.
It's a real pleasure.
And for you to lower your fee despite the Netflix series, it was very generous of you.
I'd do anything for you. Yeah. Anything for you. And can I just say, you're annoyingly, because I haven't said this to any other realtors that I met, but you are, I think, probably one of, if not the best dressed realtor I've come across.
Well, since I left the game, there's only one. Ollie, thank you very much.
Good to see you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.